Do, 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 do.
Welcome to the Red Bean Podcast, the New Orleans edition. This is your host, Mr. Toad.
And this is Dr. Frog. We interrupt today's broadcast to bring you
War of the Worlds, 2005.
Yes, the remake.
This is the remake. It was directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Tom Cruise, Dakota Fanning, Miranda Otto, and I was surprised, and I think you were surprised, Tim Robbins.
I was like, so you escape Shawshank, and the first place you do is
hide in a basement in upstate New York.
In upstate New York, yeah, exactly.
So what did you think, Dr. Frog?
I think there was Morgan Freeman giving the outro
narrator. He was a narrator.
So that was nice. It was a really good cast. What did I think? I was pleasantly surprised. I went in with low expectations. I remember when this released in the theaters, and I thought, well, you really want to see it in the theaters for the big explosions and the big action scenes. And I just kind of let it pass me up when it was in the theaters.
One thing I thought was cool about this movie was they were like, man, there had been so many other War of the Worlds, but how do we make our War of the Worlds different? And I like this idea that the protagonist... Well, before we get into that, let's maybe go over the synopsis of this film.
Sure.
Before our audience member knows what we're talking about. So the plot is... extraterrestrials with immense intelligence have grown envious of humanity's dominance of Earth and are planning against them. Divorced longshoreman Ray Ferrier works as a crane operator at a dock in Brooklyn, New York, and he's estranged from his children, 10-year-old daughter Rachel and his teenage son Robbie. Ray's pregnant former wife Mary Ann drops the two off at his house in Bayonne, New Jersey, on her way to visit her parents in Boston, Massachusetts.
I thought it was New Jersey, yeah.
Later, a strange thunderstorm occurs during which lightning strikes multiple times in the middle of a nearby intersection, causing an EMP that instantly disables almost all the electronic devices. But, on his way to investigate the impact, Ray suggests his mechanic friend Manny repair a customer's minivan by replacing the solenoid, which is like the electronic switch for a vehicle. That's what turns it on, off. It's like a switch within the vehicle. He joins the crowd at the scene of the impact, where a massive tripod war machine emerges from the ground following an earthquake and attacks the crowds, using energy weapons to disintegrate most of the witnesses into ashes.
And foghorns.
There's a lot of foghorning. Ray collects his children and commands the van Manny has repaired. He attempts to convince Manny to join them, but is forced to leave behind when a tripod attacks, resulting in Manny's death. Ray drives the children to Mary Ann's empty suburban New Jersey home to take refuge. Later, a Boeing 747 crashes into the neighborhood. Ray meeting a wandering TV news team scavenging the wreckage for food, wherein the correspondent reveals that many tripods have attacked major cities around the world, and they have force fields that protect them from humanity's defenses. She adds that the tripod pilots travel to Earth within the lightning storm to enter their machines, presumed to have been buried underground long ago. Ray transports his children to Boston to be with their mother, but a desperate mob swarms their vehicle. Wasn't that something? Forcing them to abandon it.
Yeah, what an intense scene.
I'm not going to go any further, but we'll keep moving forward. But
sure.
What surprised you about this movie, Dr. Frog?
What surprised me was the intensity of the human interactions with each other. You think the monster is the thing that's wiping out the countryside and planning it with its own plants and blood, human blood. But the real monsters were ourselves.
It always ends up that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a little bit of, do you trust the person next to you in an intense situation?
One thing I would say about the film that I think does really well is this dynamic of a dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
I remember we were kind of going back and forth on it, But do you think Robbie, the son of, he plays the son
he was fine. He was like, I want to join the military, fight a bit. He was the first to get back to the aim, which was Boston. So even if he went with his dad, they would have been stuck in a basement for a while. And, he even beat his dad back to his grandparents' place. That they were
but
gonna go to in Boston.
the kid wanted to join the military while they were getting massacred.
He joined the military, saw the end of the conflict, and went back to his grandparents' house all before Tom Cruise could just do one thing: show up.
All I can tell you is
it worked out.
This kid was trying to leave this world earlier than.
But he showed us all. He showed us all by leaving, by being there.
But I did like how
Maybe
Rachel, the daughter, how supportive she was of Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I mean, when you're that young, you want to. Your dad's trying.
He's trying to help.
You're a little more forgiving, if he doesn't have milk in the fridge. He's like, Dad, was for dinner, and he's like, just order something. I don't know.
I just feel like he's a working class man. He's been ravaged probably by the family courts. The mother.
You did get that impression because he was living in a dumpster. Well, he was living in a messy house, and he didn't have enough money to have a lot of food or furniture. And then the other family's house, the wife remarried, I suppose. Beautiful house. Lots
fully
of
loaded
furniture.
Tim will pay for
Peanut
it.
butter for...
Tim will pay for it.
Well, maybe... who knows? The underlying message here, I'm sure, is disparity in the family courts. But, maybe that's the real monster, right? You think it's the tripods? You think?
I honestly think the family courts
is
the real villain of the film. Actually,
yeah.
I think it's not the aliens coming down here, picking up humans, and then driving blades into them and sucking.
You know who didn't leave
using them as human fertilizer?
The grandparents' house at the end of the film when the kids were there and the wife was there, or the ex-wife was there and Tom Cruise was there. You know who wasn't there? Tim, the other guy.
Tim? Actually, no. I think he was in there in the background.
Oh, you think he was standing in the door?
Yeah, he was in the background in the film. He was in the background. He was just like, oh
my goodness.
Oh my God!
Goodness gracious!
I can't believe what's going on.
You know what's amazing though? New Jersey doesn't look any different. If you can pick one place to land as an alien species, and you choose New Jersey.
Oh man, when I saw that scene with all the red everywhere across the coastline,
it's amazing. It's like Salvador Dali meets Danny Elfman meets David Lynch, and they have a dystopia horror. It's like Bloodfield.
It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes, there's barbed
Willy
wire.
Wonka.
There's random barbed wire, probably from the military, but. Yeah, I was like, this is very
like blood, and then there's like this weird roots and plants growing, and you're like, they're trying to turn our world into their world.
Instead of Austin, Texas, instead it was New Jersey. It's like if Texas Chainsaw Massacre was in New Jersey.
Yeah. What did you think about the scene with the van? The van was exciting.
The van was the most exciting part of the film.
When those people start attacking the van. So what's happened is there's an EMP that went off. Essentially, Tom Cruise and his daughter and his son are driving around, and they're the only ones driving around because everyone else's cars are not working because of the EMP.
Maybe they're all Cybertrucks.
Actually, I don't know. That would even be worse because that's even more solenoids to replace probably.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that what's interesting is how quickly people turned on that van.
As soon as there was someone who screamed you could fit 20 people in that car, and I'm like, what are you talking about? There's obviously a mob. Here's the thing though, Tom Cruise falling asleep, letting his son, who he pointed out earlier, it's so funny that there's a lot of things that are said and then the opposite happens that you wouldn't expect. One is at the beginning of the film where he says, if you take my car again without a license,
I'm going to call the police and have to arrest you.
And then he falls asleep and his son's driving when he wakes up in this crowd. I'm thinking, if I'm the son, why would I drive into that crowd? And by that, what I mean is, I'm thinking of the.
I think they're trying to get to the ferry to get out of there.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of like the LA riots in the '80s and the footage of that guy pulls up to the stop sign, gets pulled out of his car, and part of you thinks, would you really stop at the stop sign? Like you don't have to.
One of the things I would say about the van scene was how brutal it was while they're sitting in the diner. And you just hear gunshots going off.
Well, yeah, Tom Cruise drops his gun, someone else picks it up and shoots whoever's in the car.
And they blow them away.
The cycle continues.
The cycle they kill that person, pull them out, and then they get in the car, then they get shot, and then they put a new person.
I really like to think that people would have more grace in terms of their...
Yeah, hopefully...
I don't think it would be like The Purge. There are people who are either like Rousseau and they think everyone has a good inside and everyone would be great. And then you have people, who are more like Thomas Hobbes, who thought, life is nasty, brutish, and short, and as soon as there's no order or whatnot, it's all going to go.
People are going to go to the
purge. Everyone's going to grab a weapon and
the lesser state of.
I think neither would happen though. I think a little balance in the middle. I think you'd have people who clear away in the street, people who certainly bang on the window and say let us in, but I don't think there'd be mass crowds jumping on cars. So maybe I'm an optimist.
Now, what did you think about robbing?
How about this? Maybe I wasn't born near New Jersey. Maybe they do things a little different down here.
In Jersey, they do things different in Jersey.
Yeah, New Orleans, they'll break into the car, but not when you're in it.
Yeah, maybe in Jersey, they'll break in it when you're in it.
They'll do...
sounds like...
I almost got in a fight. I stopped in New Jersey once in my life, and it was right when they changed the laws where they have to pump the gas for you.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm there in the wintertime. It's a snowstorm or something. I get out to pump my gas, and some guy comes up in a big coat and starts trying to pump the gas for me, and I'm trying to shoo him away. I thought he was homeless or something. I thought he was like trying to get money or something by servicing your car, and then you give him money. But I was like, get away, and he's like, no, and so I almost fought him.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I thought it was just a random stranger who was walking up and starting,
What I did like was, what did you think about the aliens and their tripods? What did you think of these robots?
These robots, cool. I liked how animalistic they are. They
mechanical, but also
head,
animalistic, yeah.
But you saw that there were also the smaller aliens sometimes that would come out, and those were an organism of some kind. They had skin.
Had eyeballs.
They still crawled, kind of.
They were holding pictures. They were like playing around with what we had.
Yeah, they were poking and seeing what made noise. They're spinning the wheels on the bike, that kind of thing. But it was very animalistic the way even the robots were handled.
I like
it. Really brings up the point that technology is more of an extension of ourselves.
Yeah.
But you can see the organic way in which the tech was being handled.
So I'm going to get to the next part of the story. As the three remain undetected for several hours, even as a tribe probed, a group of aliens explore the basement. So what did you think about the basement, and who did we meet at the basement?
We met Andy Dufresne. We met Tim Robbins, also CEO of Hudsucker Proxy. If you've seen that film, that's a good Tim Robbins
okay.
one. He invented the hula hoop. It's a really funny film. But basically, Tim Robbins does a great job of playing a deranged man who wants to build up a resistance and take some of them down. And that doesn't align necessarily with Tom Cruise's goal of staying low, keeping his daughter
keeping low profile, keep his daughter alive. But
I also found it interesting how he was like no to Tim Robbins using the hatchet on the thing, and then he ends up using the hatchet on the thing.
Yeah, but at that point they got
after discovered. It was
when they got found out.
The foghorn was going off. So, but I think it was wonderful to see Tim Robbins act, and act he did. It was a nice basement scene. There was a little bit of there was a little bit of contrast of him saying, "I have a plan of how I'm going to live my life. Do you have yours?" Which I think, in the context, makes sense. Of what are you going to do now? Are you going to leave with your kid or not? Right. Yeah. But in a deeper context, might also probe into Tom Cruise's life direction. Are you a family man? Are you going to go to Boston, or are you going to or are you going to fight like the son did, right? So there's a little bit of like, what are you going to do? I'm here resisting. Are you just going to hang out in the basement and die? Like that was his thing. Decide whether you're going to fight or not.
What I do think it's interesting is that they have had some past experiences of like doing this over like the radio, and people thought it was real.
Yeah, over the radio. They were reading the H.G. Wells one, and it starts out with a radio broadcast of, this just in, there's an unidentified, I'm sure you can read the original thing.
It was written between 1895 and 1897.
And when they broadcast
The War of the Worlds,
H.G. Wells. Yeah. It was an emergency broadcast within the book. that was being read.
So here's the thing that I thought was so interesting. The way they played it out with the aliens coming in and taking people and the human fertilizer.
Sure.
That totally matches with the dramatization of the story. Like if you were like sitting there calling the authorities, what would you tell them? Oh yeah, yes. So the tripods are coming in. The aliens, they're picking people up and they're drilling them and they're shooting lasers and they bulletproof or like they have a shield.
It made the horror more evident also for the viewer. My thought is if they were just going over the countryside and leaving big footstep holes as they were going from city to city, it wouldn't have been interesting. You'd just hang out in the farmland. They didn't see you there. The cows are still hanging out.
But when you see all that red,
all the red,
all over those fields,
tipped over
and all across the field, they killed everything.
Yeah,
that was pretty brutal.
That was pretty brutal.
Yeah,
I certainly wouldn't want to be
anywhere near that.
Seen by one of the tripods.
The only problem is, would you? How do you think Tim Robbins did it? Do you think he had the right idea, or digging a hole into the ground and hiding?
To be honest, I think if Tom Cruise could have left without doing what he did in the film.
Yeah.
And I think Tim Robbins would have dug a deep hole, felt safe, curled up in it for a while, and within less than a week,
he'd be okay.
He'd be okay. They'd come out and spread news of, hey, the tripods are all gone. It's all safe, right? So I think Tim Robbins. Yeah, dig underground. This reminds me of Gurren Lagann. For those of you who've seen Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann,
I'm going to see that.
A really good anime. It's a really good anime, especially the first 9 episodes. People know what I mean by that. Actually, it gets pretty wild after that. It's a crazy story, but it's one where there are these sort of dangers and robots on the planet Earth, and humans are forced to drill underground and to form communities there to avoid the giant, robots or the giant monsters that are on the planet. But the thing is, a couple generations go by underground and stories about what the outside world is like are only myths and stories passed on. So you follow this boy, Simone, who wants to drill through the heavens, is what he says. And of course, the story metaphorically goes from escaping from underground to escaping Earth to escaping the planet and the galaxy and stuff. It's a really good metaphor for striving for something greater than your own world around you. But yeah, I think that's what Tim Robbins would have done. If he could make a Neo New York and drill underground and have a giant city where people could live in peace, I think that was the utopia he was going after. Now, if he would have just waited a week, things would have sorted themselves out. But, I'm perfectly fine with him working towards that goal. I think Tom Cruise is a little overprotective. He said, you have nothing to say to my daughter. It's only going to be you or me. And it's like, Tim Robbins to me showed no threatening.
Yeah.
He shared all of his resources. He said, we got to work together.
Paternal instinct.
He did say, decide if you're going to stay or go. So it's not like he was trying to force Tom Cruise to stay or go, He's
making a choice.
He said, you make your choice. And then Tom Cruise said, well, my choice is to kill you. And I just didn't agree with that. But maybe it's because I'm empathetic to Tim Robbins' scenario. I would have been the Tim Robbins in the movie.
So what do you think about this aspect of the film?
Yeah.
We're going back to the synopsis. To raise dismay, who is the father, who also plays as Tom Cruise, is Ray.
Plays as...
Yeah, well, Tom Cruise plays as Ray. Yeah. So, but Robbie, his son, joins the futile fight out of hatred for the invaders, leaving Ray and Rachel to flee.
Robbie's hilarious.
I have to tell you, when I saw that, when I first saw this in the movie theater, my first reaction was to smack Robbie.
I could
start punching.
So was Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise went in the smacking motion when he wasn't listening.
Just start punching.
You were cheering. You were like, "Yeah, Tom, beat Robbie.
Beat Robbie. I want
until he goes back in the house."
There should be a campaign called Beat Robbie, and I want to be in charge of that campaign. I know you were like,
you want Robbie to be in the kitchen obeying his dad.
I don't want Robbie to go and get himself turned into mulch. Actually, in every respect, that's probably the least believable thing in this entire film is Robbie actually coming back alive. You know how much blood on that? I mean, the amount of people that got massacred.
How old was he? He was studying. He was going to write a paper about like French economic history or something, right? At the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
He's got to be like junior in high school.
Yeah,
let's say Junior, right?
Yeah, but he's not going to be able to outrun the robots. Yeah, and he gets scooped up and then turned into,
He wants to join the military. You can do that when you're 18.
Not only that, but they wiped out the whole military unit.
Well, okay.
Remember the cage part?
So Tom Cruise has that.
There were people in the military inside the cage.
Oh, and you know what they did? They fought back. There you go.
Well, thanks for Tom Cruise finding those grenades. If
Tom Cruise is a hypocrite for going out and trying to fight the robot to save his 10-year-old daughter when Robbie wanted to fight to protect humanity as well. But you're like, oh no, it's bad when Robbie does it.
See, I think
when Tom Cruise does it to protect his 10-year-old.
See, the problem is that Robbie's going to throw his life away, and instead of running with his family,
you know what? You say that. That's what Tom Cruise thought. But you know what? Tom Cruise learned a lesson at the end of it, because who was one of the first to walk out of the house when he arrived? It was Robbie. Robbie fought the robots. He went to the house before. Tom Cruise was hiding in a basement while Robbie was saving the day. And here's the thing: when Robbie went out, what did Tom Cruise do? He respected him as a man. He hugged him and said, "Wow, there you are. You're great." But you got to let him go. You can't pin him on the ground and be like, "No, you can't do this."
When I see things like that, this is my guttural response. My guttural response is, let's update your living will. That's my response. You know what? If you want to go out and get yourself killed, hey, that's on you, buddy. But your daughter,
hold him back.
You have a daughter. You have a sister who's 10 years old, and she's scared for her life, and you're running off.
Do you think Robbie has an obligation to his sister?
I think he does to protect. See,
I don't think there's any. And look, I got an older sister, so maybe it's the fact that I'm the youngest. But
would you defend your sister if she was going to be taken away by a robot arm?
If she has a chance to run away from the robot, and I'm going to fight the robot on that hill.
Yeah,
I would defend him. I'd want to defend and fight while Tom Cruise runs away to Boston with his little girl, and
trying to get to the mother.
Yeah, trying to get to the mother's house. You could go Tom Cruise, go Dad, who failed in some. Yeah, go protect the daughter. I'm going to be here.
He may have been a flawed parent, but he at least has the paternal instinct to take care of his kids. And punch people, and more than punch.
Look. Here's the thing: if Robbie had a couple kids, if he was in high school and he got a couple, has a couple kids or something, then yeah, okay, he's a parent now, so you got this extra responsibility. I don't think he has that obligation. He doesn't have any kids around him. I think he can protect it. And here, look, they're going to build some sort of memorial in New Jersey
of all the people that got massacred,
of all the people who fought against the thing or who died in the event.
There's going to be so many names. It's like a giant wall.
And Robbie's not going to be one of them. There you go. Look, okay. If
he might be a list of the victims, though.
Here's what I'm wondering, though. What if they didn't have him walk out at the end? What if everyone else walked out and it was just oh yeah, Robbie decided to stay and he died?
That would have been a really sad movie.
The mom would have been like, oh, well, thanks for taking care of the daughter. I don't know. The son decided to do what he's going to do. And then, it'd be a really awkward ending. But no, they had to have the whole family run out and everyone's good. So hooray. It's a family. Is this a family film?
PG-13.
It's PG-13. But, this isn't Independence Day. I wouldn't call it a family film. If you're sitting your family down,
it's much darker.
This
is definitely not.
This is a horror.
It's not funny. This is not a funny movie.
No.
This is an action drama movie.
It's only funny if you're one of the birds that's taking down the robots. I did think
it was interesting. Steven Spielberg did, in fact, was the director for the film.
He was the director. Now I'm wondering how involved he was. This came out in 2004. I felt like in the late 90s, early 2000s, that's when he started consulting more than actively directing. So I'm wondering, but the fact that there was an all-star cast made me think he was heavily involved. They wanted to make sure it was a good film. And they were working with good source material, so...
Yeah, I thought this was a well-executed film. It kept the drama going, and there was always a sense of panic. There was always this... Go, move, do something.
Yes.
There's no sitting around. There's not a lot of sitting around.
As soon as you get some respite, I think is the word. Some respite, some rest. The foghorn happened.
Yeah.
And we gotta jump over a bridge. You gotta dive.
I like what Tim Robbins said. He says, if you run, you die.
There was some dark humor, like when the girl was going into the woods to do some business, and there was just in the river was just bodies, and you're just like, there was this mix of wanting to protect innocence and childhood from things, but then also you need to know what's going on around you so you're well protected and don't die.
That's true.
But I felt like scenes like that where there was one and then she looked horrified and then there was like 100. I felt like that was some dark, like Danny Elfman-esque, like, or like some Tim Burton, like dark humor thrown in there or something, you know, where it's like, oh, there's one dead body and you look horrified, and then it's like, oh, there's 1,000 that you see, and it's, you know, the whole start out was something that's believable and acceptable, and then go to the extreme. That kind of follows a comedic timing sometimes. You used to see Borat do that sometimes. He would start with something that you'd agree with. He'd say another thing that you really kind of agree with, but, you know, keep nodding. And then he says something ridiculous that no one would agree with. And then you get the awkward pause.
Yep.
But I felt like there was some of that dark humor in this.
What did you think about Tom Cruise and the film? Did you think
what
it was good?
To say? I felt like he was erratic and emotional, like normal. Tom Cruise plays Tom Cruise. You know, I could picture him being typecast for the role.
Now,
I could picture Keanu Reeves playing the father figure as well.
Yes, I could see that.
I think he would have had a really good bewildered look at what was going on.
Oh my gosh! Whoa,
machines.
I don't think he would have been able to fight. I think Keanu Reeves would be like, "Go ahead, son, take yourself out."
Yeah, he would have held the son and said, "Do what you have to do," and then you would turn it around
and just walk off.
Yeah. There you go. But anyway.
So if you were going to scale from 1 to 10, 1 not being a big deal or not good, 10 being amazing, what would you rate this film, Dr. Frog?
I would say a 7.
Okay.
A good 7, though. I almost said 7.5. The thing is, when I'm going over the sound effects, the cinematography, the acting, the actors, the direction, the script, I think, was perfectly fine. It was very natural language-esque. All of this was wonderful. The scenes were over the top. I look at the depth of what's happening on the screen, though, and I don't think it even had to be War of the Worlds. I think they did that to get butts in seats. This could have been any monster movie.
But what I did like about
could have been the Blob. Could have been the Blob.
I like this film in the sense that this is a movie that challenges our conception of what a family looks like.
Really? You think that, you know, Independence Day kind of did that too. They had like the dysfunctional family that, you know, came together.
The problem
Actually, they were married.
Yeah, they were married, but they were kind of like, and no, Jeff Goldblum's character was divorced, and then...
Well, he's always divorced, isn't he? No matter, he's always looking for the next Mrs. X, you know.
But then Will Smith's character, he was wanting to get married.
He was wanting to get married. That's
one was divorced and one wanted to get married. That was the...
So that was the 90s. This is the 2000s.
This one here, this is like... Tom Cruise is he has no money and
works on cars.
He works on cars part time, make a little bit extra money, and he is just struggling to survive.
He doesn't have much milk in the fridge.
And the the wife is kind of like, come on, I take how much, like $3,000, $4,000 a month from you in child support potentially, if not more.
You never know. It's New York.
You never know. It's New York, so
it's also like monopoly money back. Yeah, well, it's New Jersey. That's probably
it's probably even worse in New Jersey. I know we're just New Jersey.
You know, if this is said New Orleans, there'd be some podcast in New Jersey where they're like, yeah, it's New Orleans, you know.
Come on.
You know, for us, they're like, you don't have any milk, and I was like, that thing is like a fourth of the way full. Like that's a good amount of milk that he had in the fridge.
Yeah.
Like they're putting that down.
So I'm going to give this film a 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10, good. Yeah.
8 out of 10.
The rewatchability is only there if you like explosions and Tom Cruise.
I kind of like the idea of rewatching this just to really look at how to create tension with a scene. I felt like I was on the edge of my seat when that robot was probing the basement. Didn't you feel you were like, oh my gosh, they're about to be found out? And especially that part with the girl shoot up.
I did for a little bit, but once they were making noise and the thing didn't react, I was like, oh, they're just going to crawl around it. It's fine. Like it's like the raptor scene in Jurassic Park, like the Steven Spielberg-esque, like, oh, the raptor's going to look over the kid's head. You know?
Yeah, and they're just like hiding.
They're not going to bite off the kid's head.
But I did like the idea of using a mirror to kind of throw the
mirror was
that was kind of cool.
The mirror was cool. There was a little bit of a plot armor though. I just didn't get it when Tom Cruise is like, look, you're going to make me do this, and then he like closes the door, and it's like, why, Tom? Why do you want to like end this person's life before leaving. He was just about to leave. Why couldn't he just leave?
He was too much of a liability.
He had to say, no, I'm going to end this person's life, then leave. And I'm like, you're on the way out the door, buddy. Let the other guy crawl into a hole, you know?
Well, he was going to yell and make too much noise.
Well, but Tom Cruise was leaving anyway. Why do you want to kill the person?
Yeah.
Hug the daughter, say I'm sorry, and then leave.
That is a little intense.
Yeah, just leave. You don't want to. Actually, he did live there a little bit longer before he left, so maybe that was the plan, to live there. Never go to Boston like his heroic son Robbie.
Yeah, don't. So I'm going to tell my audience right off the bat, and I'm just going to say, please, if we are being invaded by aliens from a different planet, please don't just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to join the military and I'm going to throw my life at these machines. You know, there's a very good possibility you'll never come back from that incident.
Or you'll never learn how the mysterious blood sprayer works unless you jump into the cage.
Until you jump in the cage and you
got to find out firsthand.
By the evil sphincter, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of disturbing.
That was very strange, that sphincter thing. That was a little gross.
That was if Elon Musk was designing these robots, I don't think they would.
I think that would be not approved or something.
I think there's some engineer on the alien planet who's like, you know, oh, this would probably work with lots of animals. I don't know.
So one thing...
I wonder if they kill animals too, like cow blood or something.
So one of the things I would say is, like, as we wrap up the review... the military was using Javelin missiles towards the end when the robots were not coordinating correctly. And I love how the story ends. In closing, the narrator explains that the aliens died because they were vulnerable to the countless microbes inhabiting the Earth that humanity has adapted to for millennia.
Yeah.
So it was really about germs and about bacteria that microbes.
Longer, you know?
The aliens just couldn't take it. And here's the thing that I like about it is this seems to me, at least when it comes to like this idea of an invasion, of an overpowering force, the only way we're going to walk out of it is not our doing, but the world we live in is going to help us out.
That's amazing. It makes me appreciate what our human body's capable of. And in some ways, there's like 2,000 pounds of pressure on our skin being pushed down, but we're exerting that much pressure outward as well to balance it out. But it's something that we just never think about in our daily lives. So you're thinking, how can we stop these aliens? You know, our conventional weapons aren't working. You know, it seems to be effective during day and light, and it ends up just being microbes and infections and all these
stuff
other
like
things.
that.
Yeah.
So overall, I think I gave this movie an 8.
Gave it a 7.
That means this is going to be wrapping up our episode for the Red Bean Podcast. We always like to ask our listeners, please, if you like and subscribe for our show, we would really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions about...
Actually, I dare you. If you don't hit the subscribe button, some tripods might pop out of the ground.
That's what I'm saying. So and if someone wants to put a comment in the section saying, do you think Robbie was being a punk?
Was Robbie
running off?
Should Tom Cruise have closed the door on Robbie instead of Tim Robbins?
Also, do you think Tom Cruise should have ended...
Robbie's life instead of Tim Cruise's.
Yeah, exactly. Should Tom Cruise have ended Tim Robbins in this film?
If he was really worried about that child support, he could just show up with none of the kids, you know? Say, hey, I tried my best to protect them.
Oh, I don't know how this whole group of people died here, but for some weird reason, their living testament said they're going to give me all their resources. I don't know why.
I guess you don't need $2,000 a month for Fruit Loops anymore.
Hey, you know what? He's going to be eating very well and
like the aliens used to.
That's right, just like the aliens. So overall, I would say that on the positive end, the runtime of this movie is 116 minutes. The budget was $132 million, and it grossed on the box office $603.9 million.
That's good.
So it made its money back.
It's better than today's films doing blockbuster summers.
Big time. But that'll wrap up our review of War of the Worlds. Starring Tom Cruise, Dakota Fanning, Miranda Otto, and Tim Robbins. Yeah. Directed by Steven Spielberg. This is the 2005 War of the Worlds. And if we don't have anything else to add,
thank you so much.
You guys have a wonderful day, and thank you for listening to our show.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.